Story 1. A few years ago, I was a contractor for a state agency whose job was to advise other state contractors on environmental laws, regulations, policies, and best practices. Yes, dear readers, I was a contractor instructing other contractors on who, what, where, when, how, and how much they could do their jobs. The only authority I carried was that the agency I contracted with was regulatory. In other words, it had the power to impose fines and enforce remediation. To make matters worse, I was a middle-aged, clean-shaven man with spotless boots and a bright white hard hat, arriving in a state-owned vehicle that was just as clean. The way this worked was that my agency billed the other contractor at a set hourly rate. That contractor had to factor this cost into their contract with the state. In other words, the more hours I worked, the more I ate into their profit. One particular project I was assigned to was a large-scale construction job with a national construction company. This was unusual since bigger companies typically had their own environmental compliance personnel. I had been working with that company for a little over a year when they finally broke ground. I sent an email to the lead foreman whom I had not yet met to inform him that I would be on site the following week. I received a response stating that, in order to be on site, I had to attend the stand-up meeting at the yard every morning that I was scheduled to be there. Naturally, I let him know that I already had all my certifications, both federal and state, and had previously attended the company's biannual safety meeting. Therefore, I would not be attending the stand-up meetings, as it would cost the company extra to have me there. I also copied my point of contact with the company in the email. As you might have guessed, I was promptly told that attendance was mandatory. No response from my point of contact. Cue malicious compliance. My billable hours began the moment I stepped out of my front door. The yard was over an hour away, depending on traffic. The meeting itself typically lasted 45 minutes to an hour, none of which was relevant to my work. Then came travel time to the actual job site, another hour or so, followed by 2 hours of work, then the return trip home. This added roughly 4 extra hours to my day, pushing me well beyond the standard 8-hour workday, which meant my overtime was billed at time and a half far exceeding the originally projected costs. Not to mention the mileage and fuel expenses for the state-owned vehicle. Oh, and by the way, cell service at the site was often terrible. Sometimes, my mobile hotspot wouldn't allow me to complete my work on site, so I had to do it from home, which was also billable time. I sent an invoice to accounting every other week. The first billing cycle passed without any reaction. No problem. The second cycle, however, resulted in an email from the Vice President of Operations, with my point of contact copied, demanding an explanation. In response, I forwarded the original email thread, my invoices, mileage logs, and timesheets copying both the point of contact and the foreman, as well as the Vice President. Less than an hour later, I received an email from my point of contact, with the Vice President and foreman copied in, stating that I could do whatever I deemed necessary, whenever I deemed it necessary. That included the total stoppage of work on site, if I saw fit. The only person I was accountable to was my point of contact. I really wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that conversation. I took my spouse out for a nice dinner that night. Story 2. So, the whole thing happened a few days ago. Cast. Me the IT intern, the engineering intern, the newly hired secretary on her second or third day of work, I believe, and Mr. Karen. Interesting detail, I am this company's CEO's daughter, but got an internship through regular channels and HR, so no one knew it at the beginning. I will also be using present times because yes. On to the story. So, I'm working away with another intern, and I'm in the same office that the secretary works in. We are working on the new production line in the factory, and I'm working out some database kinks. I made that database, and I'm mighty proud of myself. Because the dress code for interns is non-existent, and the company's dress code in general is pretty lax. I'm rocking a pretty blue skirt and elegant black blouse. Also, I am a blonde girl in her 20s. Suddenly, Mr. Karen barges in and starts to yell at me. I caught only parts of that, but it included the R word, secretary, dumb witch, etc. It took me a while to piece together the whole story. Apparently, the guy was supposed to sign an important deal with a client, but someone, presumably the new secretary, made a mistake in the client's name, typing it into the file, turning it into a curse word. I can't tell you the name, of course, but it was like the client being Mr. Woer and someone typing what you can guess by accident. So Mr. Karen is shouting at me, the other intern is pissing his pants, and I have no idea who this guy is. I don't work with people outside the production circle, clients or anything. I just make the apps and databases that hold them. I try to tell him as much, but Mr. Karen's louder than me, and he says I'm in big trouble, lost us a client and stuff. I kept most of my cool as I worked in retail for a long while before, so you know, devils don't scare you anymore if you've been the assistant manager in hell. He says he's taking me to the CEO. So, naturally, I go to the CEO's office. Mr. Karen comes in, all respectful suddenly, and starts explaining the situation. As he's about halfway through the first sentence, Dad, the CEO, interrupts him and goes, "Wait. Let me hear what she came to say first. She's working on the line starting on Monday, so everything has to be done today." Since I'm already there, I tell Dad about the issue with the system and the fact that we will need to make a reboot that will make 2 other lines stop as well. He schedules the reboot for 18 o'clock the same day and sends me on my merry way. Mr. Karen started to get the picture because he didn't stop me when I went out. I hid in the toilet to write this stuff down for my friends and reported this guy's awful behavior on the way home. It turned out Mr. Karen was supposed to fill those things himself, but he pushed it on to a secretary and she misspelled the name in the document. Mr. Karen got a warning. The secretary got told to not accept documents from Mr. Karen anymore. He has to fill every single document himself, even those that usually would be the secretary's responsibility. And I presume he met the real secretary at some point. I met the secretary on Friday while rebooting the system for the new production line. Seems like a really cool person. She is also working the afternoons exclusively at this site, so you can't meet her before 17:30 unless you drive to the metalworking site. She also got a reprimand, tough, as she did misspell a client's name, resulting in a curse word on official papers. So, you know, I do work here, but not where Mr. Karen thought I do. P.S. I still have no idea what department or site Mr. Karen is at, but I hope his computer crashes so I can go and fix it. Story 3. It all happened like 2 months ago. I just bought a new mouse for gaming and got a keyboard as a birthday present from my girlfriend. My parents wanted to celebrate my 16th birthday with my whole family, and when they told me, I immediately said that I want to lock my room door. My parents wondered what could happen, and I told them that I just don't want people in my room. They said okay, and 2 hours later, everyone came to our house. My dad made barbecue and my mom made all the side dishes. I saw my entitled cousin and aunt talk to each other, but didn't hear what they were talking about. A few minutes later, the entitled cousin came to me. "I am bored. Can I play in your room? Do you have Lego?" Me. "Sorry. I don't want anyone in my room. I have too much expensive stuff in there. I can bring you some things you can play with if you want." "No, I want to play in your room. It is too loud here." At this point, my cousin was almost crying. "I am really sorry, but I can't allow you to get into my room. You can go inside and play with the stuff I bring you." He started crying, and I heard someone clear their throat. Entering entitled aunt. I knew something bad would happen. Why is my angel crying?" Me. "He wants to play in my room, but I won't let him since I am scared that he will break my €5,000 gaming PC. I told him that I could bring him stuff to play with if he'd like." "Don't lie. You would never have something that expensive. You don't have a job to earn money, so you can't have $5,000 to spend on a PC." "Sorry. What? Are you stupid? I had some summer jobs to earn money. Excuse me. I will get something to drink." I went to get a beer. You are allowed to drink beer in Austria at the age of 16, and asked my mom to keep my cousin out of my room. "Mom, Don't worry, darling. Me, thanks. I grabbed a beer, and when I went back to the table I couldn't find my cousin. I went looking for him around in our garden and saw that someone opened my window. I saw my aunt in my room and immediately ran up to my room. Entitled Aunt, how do you start this thing? Talking about my PC. It isn't working. What the hell? Why are you in my room? I told you multiple times to stay out of here. My cousin was touching my keyboard, mouse and screen with his greasy fingers. My first reaction was to slap the back of his head, and my aunt pulled me away from him. Why did you punch him? Are you dumb? Me. Your stupid brat touched my stuff with his disgusting greasy fingers. Get out of my room. My cousin ripped my mouse out of the USB port and destroyed it. Same with the keyboard. Went to the window and threw them out. I lost it. I couldn't stand his nonsense anymore. I picked him up and threw him out of my room. I called my mom. Me, Mom. My cousin and aunt have to go now. Entitled Aunt, why? Don't you have enough money to repair it? That doesn't matter now. The keyboard was a present my girlfriend got me. Leave now or I will have to call the police. I told you multiple times to stay out of my room, and you still went in. That's trespassing. Dad enters my room. What is going on here? Where is your keyboard? My cousin threw it out of the window and broke my USB ports. Okay, that is enough. Sister, you have to leave now. Entitled Aunt. Okay, but we will not pay for the repair since it was all your kid's fault. My parents gave me the money and I could repair everything. The entitled duo never came back to our house. Story 2 cast. Me, entitled woman and random guy. So this story played out 4 weeks ago, and it was after school ended. It takes 30 minutes by bus to get home from school. I had my music going, listening to it using my Bluetooth earbuds. I sat down and 2 stations later, the entitled woman entered the bus. I stood up giving her the seat, and she stared at me. Entitled woman, what are you doing? Me, sorry. I thought I would give you my seat since you are older than me. Probably shouldn't have said that. What? How old do you think I am? Listen to me. Put away these stupid earthings. No one is respecting elderly people. Lady, I am listening to you. I've paused my music, and you can't say that I am now respecting elderly people when you don't even know my background story. I spend at least 20 weeks working for elderly people, like shopping for them, cooking, or doing anything else for them. I didn't even ask about payment since I respect them. Entitled woman, I am pretty sure that's a lie. Random guy sees us talking and enters. Sorry ma'am, but he isn't lying. I've seen him often enough helping elderly women getting over the street or shopping with them. Me, thanks dude. So ma'am, if you want to sit down, or I will sit down again. I have respect for nice elderly people, but not for stupid people who don't even know me and tell me that I am not respecting them. You have 10 seconds to sit down, or I will take that place again. The entitled woman knows she is lost and sat down quietly. The random guy gave me his place since he got off the bus a few minutes later, and I thanked him by giving him €100 for helping me. Thanks for reading these stories. I hope you enjoyed them and have a nice day. Story 4. So this happened a few years back in my hometown. I think I was around 10 or 11, but for some context, my hometown has a celebration we call Canal Days, and it's to celebrate the founding of our town that was built along a canal. So during this Canal Days in particular, there was a hot dog and burger vendor kinda like those you would see in the Liberty Mutual commercials. This was the first year I was allowed to go to the Canal Days by myself, as it was when I got my first phone. I had been going on rides and running around with my friends all morning, so when lunch rolled around, I went and got myself a burger, fries, and a soda. I don't remember the kind. It was a good day, and I was enjoying my meal when I heard that noise that we all know on this sub. I didn't notice it at first until the entitled mother got louder and cleared her throat a second time. I turned around to see a middle-aged white woman in her maybe mid-30s with the average Karen haircut, wearing a sunflower dress and a sun hat. The following interaction went something like this. Me, yes ma'am, can I help you? Entitled mother, oh my God, are you eating a burger? Ooh. Yes, why? Would you like to know where I got it? Ugh, you a no. I don't want to know because unlike you, I'm not a meat eater. Yes, she really referred to me as a meat eater, like it's a bad thing. Okay, well then, what do you need? I asked in the nicest tone I could muster. I need you to stop eating that filth. My family is only on a vegetarian diet and aren't murderers like you. It was at this time that her two goblins had walked up from their baseball games that were going on. Entitled Kid 1. Mom, what's this kid eating? Entitled Mother, oh, it's just a burger, sweetie. It's disgusting though, isn't it? Yes, it is. Unlike him, we eat healthy and aren't animal killers. It was at this time that I had realized that her second son had walked up behind me and was looking at my food. Me. Hey, what are you doing with my food? Entitled Kid 2. Oh, nothing. Just getting rid of this filth. You can't do that. I paid for it, and it's mine. You don't get to choose what happens to it. Whatever. I turned back to the entitled mother when I had a perfect idea. I shoved the burger into my mouth and took a big bite and made the biggest deal about how good it tasted, to the mother's disapproval. It was at this point that the entitled mother went red and proceeded to slap the burger out of my mouth. When I retaliated and yelled at her, she just laughed, and when I cussed at her, I called her a witch because of how she was acting. Her little entitled son tried to fight me and was yelling and screaming at me for disrespecting his mother. I was so happy I knew how to wrestle and I was able to get him off me, but at the cost of him getting hurt. After all of this happened, a police officer came over to hear the entitled kid screaming about his broken teeth. This officer asked what happened, and Karen told him a twisted story of how she was just talking to me about my eating habits and that type of nonsense. After she was done, the officer came over to me and asked my side of the story. And something I forgot to mention, I was recording my surroundings to send it to a friend that moved away. He asked for a recording of his favorite hometown event. Anyway, the convo with the officer went like this. Police officer, son, this woman told me that you assaulted her and her boys after she tried to talk to you about what you were eating. Is that what happened? Me, no. What actually happened was I was minding my own business and eating a burger when she berated me for eating meat. And when I took another bite to keep eating, she slapped it out of my hand. As for her son, he tried to attack me when I cussed at his mother. Am I going to be in any trouble? No, son, it seems that you were just defending yourself, but I need to ask some witnesses what had happened. Okay, well, can I go grab my phone to text my mom? Sure, that's fine. As soon as I picked up my phone and noticed that it was still recording, I ran like the flash over to the cop and told him I have a recording of the incident. As soon as the entitled mother heard this, she went white as a ghost. I handed my phone to the cop. Never do this, by the way, it's a dumb idea, and showed him the recording. He watched it, found the real truth, put Karen in handcuffs, and that was that, but I at least got to have the rest of the day to have fun and enjoy the last of my food that was still there. Story 5. Our company went through a reorganization, which essentially meant firing employees and giving more work to those who remained, all while paying us significantly less. We are a small company with fewer than 200 employees, trying to retain our government clients, even though large corporations like Amazon Web Services are likely to replace us within the next decade. The government clients prefer working with us because this is our sole focus, and we treat them better than larger contractors who often do not prioritize their needs. They laid off 30 people from my team of 50, leaving just 20 of us to handle the workload previously managed by the full team. Despite this increase in responsibility, our salaries remained unchanged. We are paid on a monthly basis rather than by hours worked, and we do not receive sales bonuses, an important detail in this story. I have a habit of reviewing everything meticulously, spending hours on each contract, even those that bring in just a few $1,000s. The government vendor selection process is slow and highly risk-averse. Many clients start with small contracts worth only a few $1,000s but eventually progress to multi-million-dollar agreements if everything goes smoothly. Due to the layoffs, I was struggling with the increased workload, causing a backlog of contracts. The sales director, who was from a different team, disliked me because he considered me too slow. Additionally, I frequently caught questionable tactics employed by the sales team, such as making unrealistic promises to clients or engaging in other dubious practices. The government client, however, appreciated my honesty regarding our capabilities and limitations. This was another reason the sales director resented me. He believed I was negatively impacting sales. Despite this, nearly all my clients had been repeat customers for over a decade. For example, the sales team wanted a school district to purchase outdated Dell Windows laptops, even though the entire state was transitioning to more affordable and future-proof Chromebooks. Schools operate on tight budgets, and whatever they purchase remains in use for at least 5 years. The sales team was trying to offload overpriced, obsolete equipment, while also charging the district nearly $1 million for its support related to issues stemming from the outdated hardware. During my conversation with the school district, I provided examples of state governments in the Northeast that had switched to Chromebooks, saving money while ensuring their hardware remained relevant for years to come. My job was to secure the best possible deal for the client and establish trust to encourage long-term contracts. As a result, the school district opted for Chromebooks, which were 40% cheaper and had its support costs reduced by over 80%. The sales team lost a few $1,000s in bonuses, but we secured a 5-year contract with the client. The sales director was furious that I was spending time on small contracts and reprimanded me in front of our manager. The manager, rather than supporting me, asked, "Why don't you just follow what the sales director says and stop focusing on minor contracts?" I explained that small contracts often lead to larger ones, so they deserve attention. Mistakes in small contracts could become serious liabilities if those contracts later expand. I also mentioned that I was struggling with the workload because I had been assigned the responsibilities of multiple people. At this point, the sales director started shouting at me, claiming I did not understand contracts. He emphasized that he had been in the industry for 5 years and made more money in a month than I did in a year, so I should listen to him without question. This was particularly frustrating, given that I was living in a shared apartment and struggling financially, while he drove an expensive luxury car and enjoyed extravagant lunches with government employees. I asked the sales director to send me an email outlining his suggestions for improving my work. He rudely complied, saying, "Can you not even remember what I just said in the meeting?" His email stated, "Do not review contracts worth less than $100,000 and trust the sales team to handle due diligence." I responded by copying my manager in the reply, stating that this could create legal liabilities in the future. I asked him to confirm that the sales team would be responsible for financial and legal compliance for all small contracts, and that I should stop reviewing government contracts below $100,000 unless specifically instructed otherwise. This email would later become invaluable. Q. Malicious compliance. Instead of spending 2 hours on small contracts, I reduced my review time to just 10 minutes. The backlog quickly cleared, and I was home by 6:30 p.m. every day. Then, a $10,000 contract came across my desk. I noticed a significant issue. It stated that we offered a 30% rebate to software providers. However, we had stopped offering such rebates 5 years ago and had since reduced them to a maximum of 10%. Additionally, I was aware that this government client had recently received a massive budget increase and was on a spending spree. There was a high likelihood that this $10,000 contract could grow into a $100 million contract, and if the 30% rebate clause remained, we would be forced to give back $30 million. But I remembered what the sales director said. Why don't you follow what the sales director says and stop fussing over small contracts? So, 10 minutes later, I sent an email. No issues detected based on compliance check by the sales team. Since government contracts take time, no one noticed the rebate issue at the time because the contract was only worth $10,000. However, 10 months later, The state government decided they wanted to expand their partnership with us and requested the same or better terms for a new $50 million contract. This was the largest contract in our company's history. The sales director, thrilled by the prospect of enormous bonuses, agreed to the deal without consulting anyone. Government agencies can legally extend their current contracts without renegotiation, so the sales director saw no issue in promising identical terms. Given the contract's size, every department, legal, IT, and finance became involved in its review. For 3 months, the entire company focused solely on this contract. The sales team was excited about their potential million-dollar bonuses. Finally, the finance team completed their review and delivered shocking news. The company would lose $8 million on the deal, leaving us with no profit. Everyone was stunned. The sales director had agreed to the deal without verifying the terms, and we were now legally bound to honor them for 3 years. Changing contract terms is frowned upon in government agreements, and our contract explicitly stated that nothing will change. The legal team confirmed that we had no choice but to absorb the losses. The CEO called an emergency meeting in a large conference room with massive TV screens, where every department head, manager, and involved employee was summoned. The sales leader had to explain to his team why they would not be receiving bonuses after spending over 3 months on this contract. When legal and finance presented their findings, revealing that we lost money due to the 30% rebate clause, the sales director erupted in anger. In front of 30 people, he blamed me and demanded that I pack my belongings, calling me terrible at my job despite my history of 100% customer satisfaction. I remained calm, connected my laptop to the conference room screens, and opened his email instructing me to stop reviewing small contracts. As 30 people read the email, I watched for his reaction. His face turned pale when he realized his mistake. He tried to blame someone else, even making inappropriate remarks about our consultants in Vietnam. But his credibility was gone. Aftermath. Following this debacle, I was instructed to spend 2-3 hours on each contract. The company eventually realized that hiring 20 more employees like me and paying us $70,000 per year was far cheaper than suffering massive financial losses. Our team expanded to 40 members, still not back to 50, but enough to manage the workload. Due to the financial losses, the sales director had to return his previous year's bonus due to a contractual clawback clause, amounting to nearly $300,000. He was subsequently fired. Present day. He later sued the company for wrongful termination. Today, we received the news that he lost the case and now owes the company an additional $200,000 in legal fees. He now has a total debt of over $500,000 to our company. Story 6. I just figured out that this subreddit exists, and I had strong urge to share this story. English is not my first language, so please excuse me. This all happened 5 years ago, while some of my friends were still in tourism college. How it works in my country is that you need to have a practical exam, so it's literally spending your summer vacation working as a semi-intern paid under minimum wage. Though it's tourism, so they get to work on vacation. Kind of. Their job title was something in the lines of house representative. The agency would make contracts with small apartment owners, usually 5-15 rooms, and they would resell their apartments in some tourist arrangements. The job of my friends was to basically show guests around and be on 24/7 call if any of the guests ever needed anything. So in perspective, houses were scattered around the city of cities, and it was sometimes very hard to get by them, especially as agency was run by, as always is, a greedy guy who didn't really care about providing, or rarely provided, any means of transportation. So when just 2 guests would need something, it would take you hours just to walk from point A to point B. So how one day-to-day operation would look for them. They had income of new guests 2 times a week. I think an agency would usually transport people by plane and buses, so it would be just one big group. This is your apartment. There is store. There is beach. Call me if you need anything, easy as that in 90% of the time. Though there was another more damaging group or self-transport group. That's how they called them. Those people were coming with their own cars or whatever, and they would usually have time windows like in hotels, check-in time from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Only difference, those houses don't have receptions. My friends were basically one. So the timetable was kinda more for them, so they know they will be welcoming guests from 12 to 4. I know all of this as my friends invited me to get there, as it was a tourist location with sea, and it was really nice. Free stay as they had spare beds in their apartment. I only had to spend money on food and nightlife. Also, I was kinda shadowing my friends while they were doing their work and usually ears door up just from pure boredom. So one day they had to welcome guests at a very nice villa resort. It's on the outskirts of the city, a beautiful place, so expensive, and some parts were still developing as it was kinda brand new. They had one villa finished and polished. It was missing some cosmetic trivial things outside, but the rooms were amazing. It's 12 to 4 check-in time, and we are waiting for 12 families. All of them are in their rooms till 2 a.m., and we are waiting just for one more so we can go on our ways and have something to eat. As the resort was so expensive, we could not afford to eat there. It's 8 p.m., and the last family did not provide their mobile phone. The only contact tool is a line number from a different country 1400 km 900 miles away. Again, this is a story from 2016. My friend and I are hungry like street dogs at that point. A third friend joins us, and he has a vehicle this time as he is transporting some goods to another city. So he invited us to go with him, so we can buy something to eat out of the resort. Of course, the moment we took a first bite of food, we were called by the 12th family that arrived kinda shortly after. We get back to the resort. They are waiting outside of their room in their SUV. So one thing about SUV, it was really expensive, as you can imagine. Brand new, but registration read that it was registered in a small town. And if you know that place, you kind of immediately know they are a bunch of apes. Before my friend was even able to say, "Hi, how are you doing?" complaints started firing from top to bottom all around. Insults, F-bomb, R-words, horrible language. The dude looks like if you took construction worker to Versace and gave him Mr. Beast's credit card. His wife was even the worst, generic Karen. In combination, it was doomsday. They had a complaint about everything. How everything is half-done. And that's not true. How there are, and this is important, cables hanging everywhere that their kid might touch and die. Those are their own words. How fence around villa was unfinished and there was concrete machine next to it. This was only true though. Who cares? They were not working at that time, it was just chilling in the back. Then he started talking about how he was working contractions his whole life. It was obvious, as those people are notorious for selling their father's land and living large after. And how he doesn't want to see construction equipment near him anywhere. After all of that, my friend asked him if he can show us where are those cables sticking. Those aren't cables, by the way. It was radiator pipes not connected to radiator as you are on summer vacation. I'm pretty sure it will be hot enough without those. And yeah, kid that can touch them and die was actually teen in her 13-15 years. She was just sitting in car and we didn't see her while they were bombing us with insults. Even me, who was just bystander, and told him I had nothing to do with this. Conclusion for them is that they are robbed, and that this apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. They want their money back, but we can't do anything about that, and the agency office is in another city 1.5-hour drive away. They forced us to drive there so they could follow us to speak with the owner. The moment we get there, they start with the same lunatic behavior. Yelling, insulting everything, though this time in the middle of a very crowded city. What we failed to mention was that 2016 was a hell of a vacation year. Everything was booked to 2017, and we saw people begging for literal shade. We leave agency office before them. We had enough, but one of friend's colleagues seen then sleeping in the tent beside the beach for next few days, and we were sure they failed to find anything, so they probably had to turn around and go back home for another 1,400 kilometers ride with 2 borders.